Hey everybody, coming to you guys live from the copy room here. Starting a new unit on the Romans. So we're going to start off with the Roman Republic. Now in class we're talking about kind of some of the background of the Romans, where they came from on Tuesday in class, because you guys are doing career cruising on Monday. But this for Wednesday, looking at the idea of the Roman Republic, which we'll be talking about Wednesday and Thursday in class, and touching on stuff Friday a little bit as well. Here's a question. How does the Roman Republic compare to what we have today as a government in the United States? We'll do a little bit of this in class as well on Thursday. So let's start with the year 509 BCE. Now we talk about the idea of there being a monarchy in place with this group called the Etruscans. And we'll talk about them in class on Tuesday. And they were monarchies. And the main fear of the Romans was that there was too much power in one place. Kind of like a lot like we did U.S. history in 8th grade, talking about a king. Same thing here. And we looked at the video. We're looking at a video in class on Wednesday about how the feelings were about the Etruscan kings getting away with everything, all that kind of stuff that was going on. And so as these Etruscan kings are overthrown, we start seeing who becomes a citizen, who doesn't become a citizen. First off, in Rome, you are a citizen if you're over the age of 15 and you can trace your family line back to the original group in Rome. If you had moved in Rome, you didn't count, okay? But if you could originally trace your line back to Rome, you count as a citizen. Now, within Rome, there are actually different classes of citizen as well. So you had your patricians and your plebeians. And so your patricians were the upper class. They were rich, they owned land, they had big privileges like work in government and vote and those kind of things. The other thing that patricians could do, the idea of the toga, only patricians could wear the toga. Nobody else was allowed to wear the toga, just patricians. That's a big deal. Now, your plebeians are your lower class, okay? And they have certain limits on their rights. These are your merchants, your artisans, so people who are making stuff, blacksmith, those kind of things, your farmers. Now, one rule is that, kind of on the caste system, they could not marry a patrician. You could not marry out of your class. And originally, they could not serve in government, but we'll get to that a little bit later on. So you have the Roman Republic. Now, a republic is like a democracy where you select representatives in a democratic process to rule a people, but your leader is not a king. Your leader is always elected or chosen, not passed down through family members. You even see this kind of idea of three branches, kind of spreading out power between executive and legislative. So those who carry out the laws and those who make the laws. The big idea of Roman Republic is that you do not have a king. You have a representative that rules you, and you choose those representatives. So we kind of see this group called the Assembly. It's organized by tribes. So there are 35 tribes. Okay, each one has a vote, and they basically vote to pass or not pass the laws. All the army members could elect the councils and rulers. So if you were in the army, you were serving in the army, the Roman army, you were then allowed to basically allowed to elect whoever was in. You had to be in the army, be a citizen, to elect the people that were going to rule you and elect the people. Now, your magistrates were elected by the assembly, and they're basically the ruling power of Rome. They help to make and enforce the laws. Okay, so we have our consuls, okay, which are our first group. Now, there are two people chosen to be consul. So think of consul as like a president, if you will. Okay, they have two of them. Now they lead the army, take care of stuff in Rome. Now the rule is of a consul is this: is that you only serve a 1 year term. So every single year they would elect a new consul, and the rule is that you can only be consul once every 10 years. Now we're talking about this in class about Brutus and Lucretia's husband. Now Lucretia was a Roman woman who was raped by the son of the former Etruscan king. And so these are actually the first consuls, or kind of leaders of this revolution, overthrow the kings. They're the first ever consuls of Rome. Now, your other jobs after that as well. You have praetors. Praetors run Rome at home. So when the consuls off fighting with the army, leading the army, the praetors are almost like a vice president, if you will, kind of runs things while they're home. Censors is also very important. A censor is elected every 5 years. Your job is to count the people. Now you count the people for tax purposes. And so you know that so many people are here. You know what, you can tax people and make taxes work that way. You have quaestors who are like an assistant to the council, almost kind of think of it as like a cabinet member today. So like the Secretary of State, Defense, those kind of things. And even quaestors have different jobs to help consuls carry out the laws of Rome. You also have your aediles. Aediles are a pretty cool job, actually. Your whole job is to keep the people happy as an aedile. So you would run the public games, shows, that kind of stuff. Think of Hunger Games, okay? Seneca Crane, the first Hunger Games book, would be kind of like that aedile kind of job, whose job is to run the games and those kind of things. Now you also have this aristocratic branch, you will, of the Senate. Okay, basically the Senate is going to be the 300 richest patricians. Okay, the 300 richest guys in Rome. Originally, they were advisors to the Etruscan kings, but now they're the advisors of these elected leaders. Okay, these guys basically have a lot of the power in Rome, a lot of influence, a lot of power because they decide how the money is spent. They decide where we're going to war. They decide what's going to be built. Those kind of things. And so they have a lot of power, a lot of influence in terms of what they can do in Rome. Eventually, they become the most powerful group, and the consul is usually selected from the senators. And so you start seeing this idea of kind of the council being kind of like a president, with like the Senate be kind of, well, we have our Senate today, obviously, which just helps kind of make the laws and influence the laws and make the laws happen. Now, in certain emergency situations, you can select a dictator. Now, I think about dictator, we think of like Hitler and Stalin and Saddam Hussein and those guys. But if there are certain times when the crap hit the fan, the assembly could elect a dictator for a 6-month term. Now here's the deal, is that when you were elected dictator, it was your job then to give that power back to the people. Okay? So after that 6-month time period, you then gave that power back because, well, that was what you had to do. That's what you're supposed to do. Now occasionally, there are dictators who refuse to give power back. And so it kind of did cause some trouble. We'll talk about that later on with like Julius Caesar and those kind of people, how that fits into this whole story of the idea of the dictators and those kind of things. Now, there's a question. Does this system seem fair for the plebeians? Look back at our list here. So far, only patricians could be in these positions. And for a lot of plebeians, they're like, well, this isn't fair. And so a lot of times plebeians wanted more power. And so actually what happened, there's a war actually at one point in Rome in 459 BCE. And so basically the plebeians said, we're not going to fight this war. If there's no plebeians, there is going to be no army. And basically they went on strike, if you will, in the idea of the plebeians. They went on strike. And so because they wanted more power and more say in the government system of Rome. So a different group was created. It was called the official plebeian. It was called the plebeian council. And it was a plebeian council, what it was called. And so you elected these tribunes, okay, who would then veto or disapprove certain laws they did not like. Now, they couldn't make laws. They could not be council. Eventually they can. That's down the road a little bit. But basically, if there's a law that they felt was not helping their group out, they could veto that law, get rid of it, and make a different law in its place. So kind of their way of getting involved in the government. Now, we have this thing called the 12 Tables. Now, think about it. Why do we write laws down? Think about laws in the U.S. government in the state of Wisconsin. Think about things in your student handbook. What are the benefits of written down laws? Well, it was important that you know it. Now, they developed this code of laws around 450 BCE in Rome. Basically, what they do is that they make these laws to make sure that the people stay in order. And actually, what they do is they actually send representatives to Greece to study the laws there. They decided what they're going to do is they're going to learn the laws from Greece and then use those laws to help make laws for Rome. And really the plebeians wanted this especially because they said, we don't really have a say in the laws here. We want to know what the laws are. We want to see these laws written down because, we are kind of, have to follow them, but we can't make the laws. So that's where we kind of see this idea of written down laws or code of laws come from in Rome. And so actually to these 12 tables, 12 stone tablets, posted in the middle of Rome for everybody to see. Eventually, get replaced and were spread to all different cities of Rome. But things in the tables include like government and corporate, which kind of our own constitution today, how the government works, how you get elected, how long a council can stay in power, those kind of things. So rights of fathers. The big idea in this is the idea of power of the father. It's a very important role. We'll talk about this a little bit. Talk about patricians and plebeians. Is the power of the male and the family. And so family law did play a big role there. I'll talk about this in class as well. Ideas of debt were important, guardianship and inheritance. So like women are basically perpetual minors. But who can get inheritance, who can't get inheritance, idea of land, who can own land. Laws of injury, kind of like we saw with Hammurabi's Code. When you do something with somebody, what happens to you back? Public law, religious laws, all those kind of things are put in here and actually ask you to look at the example in your textbook on page 142. Technically these 12 tables as well. So we're taking in class. We're taking a look at this in class and comparing the structure of laws on Thursday. We'll take a look at this in class then. But please make sure your notes are ready for Wednesday so we can talk about the government of ancient Rome. And we will continue on from then, guys. So thank you very much. And we'll have a little quiz on this when we come in. Thanks a lot, guys. Make sure you're done for Wednesday.